It's College Football Award watch list season. We'll give you the entire rundown, plus talk recruiting with Mr. Tighter Insider himself. That's all right now, only on TITV.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tighter Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Carrie Harris.
Well, I don't guess the timing is ever good for something like this, but it was really bad for Kenyan Drake. The junior running back is very likely going to be back in Nick Saban's doghouse after a Saturday morning arrest for obstructing governmental operations. He was trying to retrieve a car from a crime scene in downtown Tuscaloosa. He crossed under the yellow tape, and that is a no-no. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tighter Insider Television, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Once again tonight, I'm going to pop the top on a Pepsi Cola and enjoy a nice swig. And that is great as always. Remember to pick up some Pepsi products the next time you're in your local grocery store. Rodney Orr is on vacation tonight. That's why you don't see him up here, but we are going to visit with him in just a little bit on the telephone. But we begin with news from the July 4th weekend that isn't good. Alabama's running back, Kenyan Drake, is in trouble again. Like we mentioned, he's been in Saban's doghouse before, and he's most likely on his way back there again, but it's never been anything just totally bad. And in this case, though, it is an arrest. The junior was released Saturday from Tuscaloosa County Jail after posting a $1,000 bond. Now, part of it is being in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was a shooting in downtown Tuscaloosa early Saturday morning. Drake was out with friends. He was not involved in the shooting at all, but the crime scene was taped off, and he did not obey orders from police officers to stay away from the crime scene. It was marked off with the yellow tape. He tried to retrieve a vehicle, and once he did, he was arrested on obstruction charges. Here is a statement from head football coach Nick Saban, who has been on vacation. You know he doesn't like dealing with this on vacation, but the Sports Information Department issuing this statement to our B.J. Milliken and others on Saturday. I'm aware of the situation with Kenyan and will handle it once I've had a chance to review all of the information and talk to the appropriate people. Again, that's Nick Saban, Alabama head football coach, on Kenyan Drake. Well, as we approach the season, now closing in on a month and a half away, we start getting into the watch list. The various awards have already started releasing their list on Monday, and as you may expect, plenty of Alabama representation on all of them. Let's start with the Maxwell Award, which A.J. McCarron won last year. Jacob Coker, before throwing a pass at Alabama, is listed as a player to watch for that award that recognizes the nation's top player. His receiver, Amari Cooper, is also on that list, as are two of his backfield teammates, Derrick Henry and T.J. Yeldon. Now here are the Alabama players on the list. Birmingham's Amir Abdul out of Nebraska is also on it as well. Played at Homewood High School. And also on the list, last year's Heisman Trophy winner from Hueytown, Jameis Winston, the Florida State quarterback, as well as Auburn quarterback Nick Marshall and Auburn wide receiver Sammy Coates. 12 SEC players are on the list total. The Crimson Tide defense also getting love from the Bednarik Award, which lists Alabama players including All-American candidate Landon Collins. That is given to the country's top defensive player. Collins is the outstanding safety for the Tide. Here are the other guys on there with Landon. Senior linebacker Trey DePriest. Also, defensive tackle, sophomore Ashawn Robinson. 15 SEC players are on the Bednarik Award watch list total. Maybe the X factor for Alabama this season? Christian Jones out of Minor High School. He landed on the Paul Horning watch list. That goes to the nation's most versatile player, and he certainly has a lot of versatility. He had 3 special team scores a year ago. He's also outstanding in kick and punt coverage. He's expected to return punts and kicks again this year for the Tide. And you know what? He could probably play cornerback as well if they needed him to. So he is definitely a candidate for the Paul Horning Award. A couple of more lists came out today. The Mackey Award for the nation's top tight end. Sophomore O.J. Howard landed on that list. The sophomore had 2 touchdown catches last season, including that huge one against the LSU Tigers in Tuscaloosa. And finally, rounding out the last 2 days of Watch List, the Remington Trophy, which goes annually to the country's top center. And on that watch list, junior Ryan Kelly, Alabama starter at the center position. He is looking to have a huge year and be a serious Remington candidate. Well, what does all that mean? Nothing really, other than Nick Saban has put together a lot of talent in Tuscaloosa for the 2014 season, but you have to come together as a team. Much more TITV coming your way. Next, we'll welcome Rodney Orr to the telephone to discuss some recruiting with us on the program. That includes a look at how Alabama commitment Blake Barnett is tearing it up at the Elite 11 quarterback competition. So far, so good for the California product. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen on how you can interact with us on Tider Insider TV. The phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or reach out to us on Twitter, hashtag Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back with the only takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The one, the only Tider Insider Television will return after this. He committed to Alabama a couple of weeks back, and Blake Barnett is making a name for himself at this week's Elite 11 quarterback camp up in Beaverton, Oregon. He was ranked number 4 among the 18 quarterbacks coming into the camp. But I tell you what, everything I've read is that he is tearing it up. And joining us now to talk more about Barnett and other recruiting events going on this week up in Oregon is Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, enjoying a week off in Gulf Shores, but he's with us now, I'm sure, enjoying a nice ice-cold Pepsi and ready to talk some football recruiting. What about it, Rod?
I'm here. I don't have my Pepsi, but I'm here.
Well, we'll let it slide this time, but next time make sure you have it with you. Hey, let's talk about Blake Barnett. I mean, you were telling me for some time you really liked his athleticism. I don't want to say he flew under the radar because he was previously a Notre Dame commitment, so clearly he was a highly thought-out prospect, but maybe not highly as rated as some other 2015 quarterbacks. But, man, he seems to be putting on a show out there at the Elite 11, Rod.
Well, I mean, really, you know, these quarterback evaluations and ratings or whatever, they kind of change frequently. And, you know, some of the guys that were on the top of the heap at one point are kind of, you know, I don't want to say necessarily fall and take a guy like Ricky Town, who was an early commitment to Alabama, and everybody thought this guy was going to be the #1 quarterback in the country. And he's kind of, again, he's still considered highly, but he slipped down, and Barnett's moved up, and it's just kind of the way things go in these ratings. But, you know, Blake Barnett's certainly a guy with a lot of athletic ability, but he's also an outstanding passer. He's, you know, shown himself really well out in Oregon, throwing the football this week in the 7-on-7, the things that they do. You know, they take it to the chalkboard too, and they, you know, show what their mental understanding of the game, Gary. And so I think it's been impressive in the classroom and on the field in that setting out there.
Rod, I don't think Alabama's ever going to go to the spread. The Tide is very successful doing what it has been doing on offense, regardless of who the coordinator's been. Having said that, there does seem to be an effort to get more athletic, if you will, at the quarterback position. You talked about this guy, how athletic he is. He's long, he can run, throws it on the move very well. Am I accurate in saying that Alabama's making an attempt to get quarterbacks are seen more as athletes and not necessarily just pocket passers?
Well, I think they would like to have a guy who can move, and that's what he can do. You know, but certainly I think you have to be able to execute in the passing game, you know, in the pro-style attack that Alabama utilizes. I think that's very, you know, important, has always been and will continue to be. But, you know, having a quarterback who, against these defenses who can move and hurt you with his feet certainly adds another dimension. But, again, I think the thing about him is going to be his ability in Alabama's style of offense to extend plays. When they flush him out, he can roll out, and then the threat for him to run, maneuver around, and then throw the ball on the run certainly adds a huge dimension that, you know, maybe Alabama hasn't necessarily had.
Rodney, several more Alabama commitments are at the opening, which goes on in conjunction with the Elite 11. Let's talk about some of those guys. Among them, Minkah Fitzpatrick and possibly a future wide receiver for Barnett, Calvin Ridley. These two guys have distinguished themselves, and they're tremendous athletes.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick, of course, and Ridley both committed. Ridley, the wide receiver from down in Coconut Creek, Florida, and Minkah Fitzpatrick from St. Peter's Prep up in New Jersey. And, he's a cornerback, and those guys are doing really well at the events there so far in that the opening events, and I saw where they had scored pretty well, and I haven't had a chance to keep up with it really, that much, but it's not surprising because they are great athletes. Ridley, some people think he might be the best receiver in the country. Fitzpatrick, some think he might be the best cornerback in the country, or certainly ranked, as one of the best. So, the fact that they're doing well really isn't surprising. There's some other guys I think that Alabama's recruiting that they could have a shot at. KJ Hill, for example, from North Little Rock, Arkansas, who was a high school teammate of LT Tenpenny at Alabama now. So he's doing really well up there too. So, a lot of guys that Alabama has commitments from, as well as guys that they are recruiting or participating in, these events.
I know you can't see the video on the screen, but we had some video BJ put together today from out there at the opening of a one-handed snag by Ridley, where he just literally went up. There's one-handed catches, and then there's one-handed snags, Rodney. He just reached his hand up and just like a mitt, just grabbed the ball out of the air on the run. Unbelievable testament to not just his athletic ability, but the incredible hands that he has.
Yeah, he's a very fluid receiver, a guy that, is considered, again, one of the top wide receivers in the country, and there for a lot of reasons, And, he's from down there, in that South Florida area, Gary, where they produce a lot of tremendous talent, a lot of great athletes. And, I think when you look at Calvin Ridley, certainly with Alabama losing so many receivers next year, when you're talking about Amari Cooper will probably leave early, DeAndre White certainly will be a senior, Christian Jones, so they're going to need some new guys to come in and compete with some of the guys that are here. I think Calvin Ridley is one guy that is a key recruit for Alabama.
Ridley could be Amari Cooper Part 2. I think Alabama fans could live with that. Let's take a look at Alabama's other commitments at the opening, or we have a list of them. Fitzpatrick, Ridley, we've talked about. Dallas Warmack, the offensive lineman. Jonathan Ledbetter, Lester Cotton, Deontay Thompson are all there as well. And as you said, other players that Alabama is recruiting on hand up there in Oregon this week. All right, let's change subject. Late last week, Brandon Hill tweeted out that he's been released from his scholarship at Alabama. Rodney, I'm going to say I was surprised. I mean, he's a big guy. We know he's got to watch his weight, but a lot of potential. He just didn't give it, much of a try here. He was only here about a year. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that, but, I also think, Gary, he did come in about, I know when he was on his official visit, because he told us he was 425 when he came in on his official visit right before he reported to Alabama. So he was pretty heavy, and he lost some weight. I think he got down in the 370s at one point. I'm not sure what he is now, but he did struggle some with his weight, obviously, and he really needed to get his weight down to be effective. I mean, some people thought that he really had DJ Fluker type ability, and DJ even told us when he came in he was 4'10" and had to lose a lot of weight and got down to 330. We know what he did, and the hope was that Brandon Hill could kind of do some of those same things, because he was had potential to be an outstanding player. Gary, I don't know that he, again, I hate to speak because I'm not really sure of the situation, so I don't want to necessarily blame it on weight, but I'm just not sure that Brandon Hill gave it his best while he was here.
All right, well, we wish the young man well, and be interested to see where he pops up at. All right, more to come on Tider Insider Television, including a former Crimson Tide golfer with a shot that he'll remember for the rest of his life on the PGA Tour. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information again on your screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a phone call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider Television right after this. It's every golfer's dream, but how about doing it on the 18th hole on a Sunday of a PGA Tour event? Former Crimson Tide golfer Bud Colley, exactly that. A hole-in-one at the Greenbrier Classic. And not only did it have a shot that got him a handshake from Tom Watson, it was 200 par on that hole. That allowed him to finish at -9, tied for fourth, and he picked up $227,000. Plus, all the fans on the hole won $100 cash for the hole-in-one. You can't beat it. Winners all around. All right, let's head to the Med Center phone lines. The Med Center hotline is ready to go. Rodney's with us down in Gulf Shores, and we're going to talk with Harold in Anniston. Hey, Harold, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Very well, man.
My question is, man, I've been watching some of these college football shows, and they saying Alabama's running backs, a couple of them having fumbling problems. I was wondering, You think this will give some of the ones in the back end of the rotation a chance to move up?
Well, Harold, you know, it's a position where you're carrying the ball, obviously, and you're taking a lot of hits. And there have been some fumbles last year. You know, both Yeldon and Drake put it on the ground a few times. Rodney, we know we've been at practice. We watched how hard Burton Burns works with these guys in terms of ball security. I don't think it's at a situation yet where a guy like Yeldon is going to be knocked down the depth chart because of fumbling, but he needs to tighten up there a little bit, don't you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I think certainly, you know, he's had some crucial fumbles that there's never a good time to fumble, but certainly he's had some fumbles at some key points in games, and there's no doubt about it. You know, Drake fumbled some, struggled with that some last year. I really don't know if you go back and add up the numbers, you know, what, how bad it really was in terms of, you know, percentage of fumbles and all that. Mark Ingram never fumbled, it seems. But, you know, Gary, I think that sometimes, you go through a streak if you watch running backs where maybe sometimes, I don't know if it goes mental or what, it just seems like it happens and they turn loose of the ball. But I think, you know, Alabama certainly, nobody works harder on that, as you said, than Burton Burns.
All right, let's go to Fayette County and talk with Gary. Hey, Gary, welcome in. How are you?
I'm fine. I'd just like to know, Alabama signed Darren Payne.
Well, you know, Darren Payne Darren Payne, however you pronounce it, is from Birmingham, Shades Valley High School. He's at the opening, Rodney. We can't really speculate on where he's going to go, Gary, but as a football player, Rod, he's one of the top high school defensive tackles in the country.
Yes, he is. There's no question about that. I mean, he could be a, outstanding, college football player. I mean, he has size. He's an interior player. You don't find many guys come out year after year in the state of Alabama that have, his size and potential physically. But, I think that certainly Alabama has a great shot at Darren Payne.
They're certainly actively recruiting him, no doubt about that. No doubt that Darren Payne is a prospect for a lot of SEC schools and schools around the country. All right, Harold and Gary, thanks for the phone calls. More Tider Insider TV is coming up next. That includes a start date for Trevor Relaford's NBA career in the Summer League, and also more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email TITV@WVUATV.com. Twitter, hashtag Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Former Crimson Tide hoop star Trevor Relaford has a start date for his NBA Summer League debut. He'll suit up with the Atlanta Hawks summer team on July 12th at 3:30 against the Washington Wizards. Good luck to Relly. He's a great young man, and hopefully he'll stick it out and win a spot with the Hawks. That would be great. All right, let's go back to our Med Center hotline. I'm here in the studio in Tuscaloosa. Rodney Orr is on vacation, but with us on the phone in Gulf Shores, and Charles is with us from Sylacauga. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, will Tony Brown and Marlon Humphrey be starting at corner this year?
Rodney, those two freshman cornerbacks, everybody's interested in Brown and Humphrey. Your thoughts on whether or not one or both could potentially start?
Well, I think Tony Brown certainly has a great opportunity, too, especially with Eddie Jackson down, with that knee right now. And, when you look at Tony Brown, he's 6 feet. Gary, he's about 208 pounds or so. He's a little over 6 feet, almost 6'1". So he's got all the physical skills. He went through spring practice. I think he's got a great shot to play quite a bit this year. He might earn that spot, Charles. We'll just have to see. But, as far as Marlon Humphrey goes, he's a great athlete. Probably needs to get a little bit bigger and stronger, but, it wouldn't surprise me if he contributes this year. But, again, he didn't go through spring practice like Tony did, so Tony kind of has a leg up.
All right, thanks, Charles, for the phone call from Sylacauga. Let's go to Panorama. That only means one thing. It's Plato. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. Good evening. I'd like to have you guys comment on Coach Saban's recruiting policy of you shop, we shop, and how often do you think that really comes into play during the recruiting season?
Rodney, you follow recruiting a lot closer than I do. Your thoughts on the you shop, we shop deal?
Well, I think, especially this day and time, when you look at the way recruiting goes, I mean, these guys, just because they commit, commitment doesn't really mean anything. I mean, these guys change quite a bit. So I think that certainly, you have to protect yourself. You have to continue to evaluate, continue to recruit players, other players all the way till the end, because you never really know what's going to happen. I mean, it just changes so dramatically now. And so, I mean, really, I think that's probably that saying, you shop, we shop. I mean, it's probably, that's probably just the way it goes.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, everybody shops all the way up until they close the grocery line on signing day. It's just a part of it. All right, let's get a quick email in. This is from Bill in Tuscaloosa. Do you think Henry will start before Yeldon? Rodney, we've talked about this before, and certainly Henry against Mississippi State. We saw it against Oklahoma. Big, strong, freakish athlete. But T.J. Yeldon's got over 2,000 yards in 2 years. He's the starter, in my opinion, and I think will remain that. And Henry and Drake and those other guys are going to be battling for playing time behind him.
I don't think there's any doubt. You're talking, like you said, a guy that's rushed for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, his first 2 years, freshman and sophomore seasons. I mean, I don't think that's ever been done at Alabama. I mean, so this certainly, I think T.J. Yeldon's a guy with experience, and, you can trust him. And I think that, he's the guy that's going to start. I do think, Derrick Henry, will be interesting to watch him play, Gary. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch him play this year, see what his role is going to be.
All right, Rod, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your vacation.
All right, y'all take care, Gary.
And thanks for the phone calls and emails. We're back to wrap it up after this. And don't forget, everybody, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay again tonight at 10:30 after the news at 10, or online anytime at WVUATV.com. Thanks to our producer, B.J. Milliken, our director, Wyatt Carruthers, and all the rest of our TITV staff. Special thanks to Rodney Orr for joining us on vacation down in Gulf Shores. And thank you for watching. This has been Tider Insider TV. We'll see you back next week, SEC Media Days. Good night.